It is the morning after. We have returned. I appreciate you joining us. I'm sure for our first episode, the viewership will be thin, but we are still going to plow forward. The morning after week 5 in the NFL, we will get to a ton on today's show. I'm going to try to keep it under an hour. That's my goal. Um, and the goal is also to do this once a week to start. And that's kind of where I'll begin. We'll have week 5 reactions. We'll have college football playoff predictions. We'll have Heisman predictions. I'll update the market. I'll give my thoughts on what happened in a crazy day in the NFL yesterday. Absolutely nuts. But first, let's just vibe a little bit, right? It's the whole point of this show is to return to what I thought was one of my favorite shows that I've ever done in my broadcasting career. And that's where I want to start today because I think if you are a fan of Sports Grid, if you are a fan of me, you remember this show from many years ago. Feels like a million years ago. It's really only 5 years ago. Um, but the reason why I love this show is because I think it fit what my vibe was as a broadcaster, which is absorbing what I see every week and then reacting to it the next day and then trying to spin it forward to either make a bet or just figure out what the heck is going on. I don't love how it ended for me a few years ago, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this show back. Um, I'm not going to bring it back in a gambling capacity. This is not going to be a gambling show. For those tuning in, hoping you're going to get my picks, hoping you're going to get all of the sharp information, like that's not. Again, listen to the music right now. Listen to the vibes. This is meant to be something that I can build, something that I can grow into my voice, and just kind of retaking something that I thought was meant for me that was not necessarily that didn't end in the way that I wanted it to end. So here we are. We're back. The morning after. Episode 1. Very excited to be here with you today. For those of you that are watching live, I will try my best. I only see 2 people watching, and one of them's me. So I know that there's probably not going to be a lot of viewership on show 1 as we try to roll this thing out and try to get the word out about this thing. But I will try. I do have the YouTube chat open. If anyone is in the YouTube chat watching, most days I feel like I'm speaking to myself anyways when I do shows. But if you are in the YouTube chat, you want to say what up, uh, you want to drop me a question, I will try my best to answer it at some point during the show. Again, the morning after, it's not going to be every day. I don't have time for that right now. Maybe one day it will be. There's a network out there that wants to pick this show up on a daily. Maybe it will be every day. But right now, the goal is to go live the morning after major sporting events. Most notably, right now in the fall, NFL Sundays, because that's when we can obviously get the most out of reacting to what we saw yesterday. And that right now is the plan. Maybe later on in the fall, I will add another show. I will add more reaction live elements. But right now, to keep things simple for me from a production standpoint, I just want to go live once a week. It'll be more Monday mornings. It'll probably be around this time, around 7, 8 a.m. Pacific, 10, 11 a.m. Eastern. So keep that in mind. Again, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please support the content. I work really hard. I know uh, I don't have the hot takes. I don't have the flashy, uh, you know, crazy stuff that I put out there. Clickbait. I'm not a hot chick. I'm just a dude talking sports who tries to put his best foot forward. Sometimes I put my foot in my mouth, but listen, if you do this long enough and you're on the air long enough, you're always going to be wrong about something. All right, so that's kind of where I'm at. Again, I appreciate you guys tuning in the morning after. Very excited to be back here with you. This show held a slice of my heart for a very long time. I poured my heart and soul into this show when I worked on it a couple years ago. Don't know why Sports Grid got rid of it. Don't really care. But I am bringing it back. Not in a gambling capacity. Again, this is not a gambling show. This is a sports show. Are we going to talk about gambling? Of course. Gambling is part of now the sports daily community. But this is not a show where you're tuning in and I'm just going to run through all the games and give out my picks. That is not the vibe of this show. That is not what I had intended it for. This is about me reclaiming something that I thought was mine to begin with, that I really thought was taken away from me in a very unfair way, which we won't get into, but also me having a voice, me continuing to use my voice to give my takes on what I see in the world of sports. So, speaking of week 5, holy Jesus effing Christ. Insane day in the NFL yesterday. Absolutely insane. Tough week for favorites. You know, that's been the vibe over the last 2 years, really since the start of last year, is chalk, chalk, chalk. The favorites have been winning at an obscene rate. Um, Three dogs of a touchdown plus won yesterday. Titans over Cardinals, Niners over Rams. That was Thursday night. And then late last night, the Pats over the Bills, which that really was the bigger surprise. I mean, I know Titans over Cardinals knocked a lot of people out of Survivor. The way that game went down in the second half with DeMercado fumbling and then the crazy interception touchdown, which I'll be honest, I might never see another play like that in the history of the NFL. Um, that that was obviously an insane ending, but I think in terms of pedigree, we view the Bills right now as probably the best team in the NFL. Don't expect them, and don't view that about the Cardinals for sure. Um, so didn't expect what the Patriots did last night, but you have to give them a ton of credit. I think my take on this. So the the reason why I think favorites have been winning at such a high rate over the last year plus is the death of ugly dogs. What do I mean by that? So for those of you that have been sharp gamblers or listening to people who are sharp bettors, professional bettors in the NFL circles, they will always tell you, A, they prefer dogs and they love ugly dogs because that's the underdog that nobody wants to bet on. And typically that's when you get the most value. For those listening on the audio only version of this, I'm doing air quotes there. When I say value, I mean usually when teams don't get bet on, A, that's when, you get the most favorable number. Um, the problem with that is when you're betting on these ugly dogs, you're betting on horrible quarterbacks. You're betting on Cam Ward. You're betting on Justin Fields. You're betting on, just Jackson Dart. These guys that are not considered good quarterbacks in the NFL. Joe Flacco, Dylan Gabriel with the Browns. Um, and those guys, those quarterbacks, I think, are getting worse, relatively speaking, to the average quarterback in the NFL. I think there is a widening gap between good and bad teams in the NFL. Not like it was 5 years ago, where maybe that gap was a little bit tighter, and some of these ugly dogs had a better chance to win outright. That being said, obviously we had two of them win outright yesterday. I wouldn't consider the Patriots an ugly dog, not with Drake May. Drake May is absolutely one of the top 5, top 10 quarterbacks in the league right now in terms of the EPA. But I would say the Niners with Mac Jones at quarterback on a short week with everyone injured, and I would definitely say the Titans were definitely ugly dogs that won outright. So maybe the ugly dogs are starting to bark back a little bit in the NFL. I think a great example of this when I talk about the bad teams getting worse. I think the Jets really are that example. And you're gonna have to bear with me as I kind of run through some of the intricacies of running your own show when it comes to switching your own board. So I want to show you this tweet, and I'm gonna do this a lot on the show. The vibe of the show is gonna be me obviously talking, duh, but I want to show you things that are important, and I have this fun way that I can kind of switch back and forth. Um, if I can find the tweet from Ari Meirov here about the Jets being the only 0-5 team in the NFL. Um, and exactly what the Jets are up against these days. So again, just bear with me as we work through some of the intricacies of the show. I thought I had this tweet pulled up, but I didn't. Here it is right here. All right, so let's go to the screen share now. I love this. Let me just turn this down because I know it's going to go back later. So Justin Fields 0-26 as a starter when the opponent scores 21 or more points. Again, that really is a wild stat, an absolutely wild stat. As we look at this on, I got to figure out a way to get this this little Riverside. So I'm running this show on Riverside. I have to figure out a way to get this tab not to show up on Riverside, or else I can't show you these tweets going forward. So, because the whole point is to put me in the box there at the bottom right, but that obviously isn't working. So again, we have our first technical difficulty on the show. Isn't that fun? All right, I'll go back to me now because let's be honest, that's why you're here on the show, right? Let me see if I can figure out a way to get this. I think if I move this, hold on, we're working things out here on the show. We're figuring it out on the fly. All right, now if I move this here, see, watch. This is the magic of TV, magic of live TV. Now we're gonna move this here. Watch this. Look at that. Boom. And now you can see my beautiful face on the bottom right corner. Perfect. Okay, so there you go. Justin Fields 0-26 when the opponent scores 21 or more points. Just an insane statistic for the New York Jets, who again, they're the only winless team in the NFL right now. We're waking up on a week 5 morning with the only winless team in the NFL being the New York Jets. So I do something every week called the Fluke Report. What is the Fluke Report? So what I do is I compile stats from all the games and I figure out a way to make it palatable to where I can figure out if teams are winning the games that they should be winning or if they're not. So if I go to my weekly matchups tabs again, this is my NFL spreadsheet where I do like everything. And if you want to look at what my tabs are, I really don't care. Like you can look at, I have my lifetime class schedules tab saved on there. I really don't care. So week 5 right here, here in the middle, the Fluke Report to me is a very helpful tool that allows me to say, okay, this team won, but they were outgained yards per play. They were outgained, they had a minus success rate. They won the turnover margin. It kind of helps me figure out if we should be upgrading or downgrading teams in the NFL. So here's the Fluke Report for week 5. Belt to ass game of the week. So that is the biggest plus net success rate of the week. I call it the belt to ass game of the week. It's basically the team that got their ass kicked the worst. And no surprise, at the top of the belt to ass game of the week standings this week is the Texans over the Ravens. Plus 20% net success rate for the Texans over the Ravens. Ravens have a real problem right now. Not sure how they really fix things, to be perfectly honest with you, but they have a real problem right now. And it's injuries, it's Lamar Jackson not being good, it's a whole lot of stuff. This is just coffee, by the way. So excuse me as I take a sip because it's hard to just talk by yourself for a long period of time. This is that was the biggest, widest success rate margin of the week, of the season. Excuse me, 20%. So prior to that, it was the Lions over the Bears in week 3. That ass kicking was a plus 19%. Detroit over Chicago. Houston plus 20% over the Ravens. 60% success rate for the Texans yesterday. The Ravens had 40%. I think we really have to downgrade the Ravens significantly, especially until Lamar Jackson comes back, because this roster is in shambles. I mean, it's a bottom 5 roster, I think, without Lamar and with all these defensive injuries. And Houston, who had not looked good offensively, just absolutely shoved one right up the you-know-what yesterday for Baltimore. So that is the top of my Fluke Report. I always say, what's the biggest ass kicking of the week? And was it really a true ass kicking, or was it just, things snowballed? This was an ass kicking. It was the worst ass kicking of the season so far. All right, now let's get into the meat of the Fluke Report, right? I'm highlighting this in the middle. Teams that won success rate but lost the game. These are teams that I would be very hesitant to upgrade based on their win, right? The Rams, hesitant to downgrade based on their loss, right? You win success rate but lose the game. The Rams won success rate by a plus 7% margin, lost to the 49ers. Seahawks were very good on offense yesterday, 58% success rate, lost to the Bucks. Jets and Bills slightly won success rate, lost the football game. Again, those weren't as decisive because those teams also lost yards per play, right? And so that's the second level of the Fluke Report. Teams that won yards per play lost the game. There's the Rams, there's the Seahawks right at the top of the list. How about the Seahawks? 8.5 yards per play. Couldn't win a football game over the Tampa Bay Bucks. Just a really gritty performance by Tampa Bay. We'll get to Baker Mayfield a little bit later in one of the new segments that I cooked up here on the show. We do have some fun segments that I'll preview in a little bit. But Rams and Seahawks, right? both on the success rate and the yards per play fluke report. That means I am not downgrading either of those teams this week. I just think those games could have gone either way. They were toss ups. The Rams and the Seahawks, they won the stats but lost the game. When that happens, I'm not downgrading a team. And on the flip side of that, right, we're not upgrading San Francisco. We're not upgrading Tampa Bay based on their wins because they lost the stats, probably should have lost the game. Cardinals and Eagles also on the 1 yards per play but lost the game category. I'm not necessarily as enthused about the Eagles Broncos game. I think that one, frankly, I was on the right side of that one. I bet the Broncos, but I thought the Eagles really, I in the first half they looked that was the best their offenses looked all year. They were taking deep shots. They were running it a little bit better, and then I don't know what happened in the second half. You give Sean Payton a lot of credit, made a lot of good adjustments, but the Broncos really made a nice comeback there. And in the Cardinals Titans game, I mean, that's the weirdest game of the year so far. I was on I went 4-1 in my circa picks and my splash sports picks. I usually do both. I do both the same because it's just I'm not one of those people that is gonna go pick five sides in my splash contest and then reverse it in the circa. Like my five contest picks for the week, I try to keep it consistent amongst. I'm in two contests this year, right? I'm in Circa Millions. I'm in Splash Sports, which I'm hosting a pool for them, and it's the same, pretty much the same lines every week. Maybe they're off by half a point. So I usually just, if I like one, I'll put all five picks in the same pool, or in both pools. So I went 4-1 yesterday in Circa and Splash. The only loss was the Cardinals. I was absolutely certain when DeMercado ran that touchdown in, I was going 5-0. Certain. I was dancing around my house going 5-0, 5-0. And then I looked back at the TV and this Dumbo drops the ball. So I want to show you again another video here. And um this is Jonathan Gannon going up to DeMercado after he fumbled. I mean, just a bone. One of the. I mean, look at him. He almost hit him. He did hit him. I mean, he was pissed, and rightfully so. Now, um, I credit the offensive linemen there. It looks like that are kind of um, consoling him. But oh man, I just don't understand. I just don't understand. Let me go back to. Let's go back to me here. I don't understand how you continue to do this. This is, and maybe it's the what's the Chad Powers, or I forget the Powers guy, the TV show that he gets run out of the league because he drops the ball before the goal line, or I forget the premise of the show, but that was how it's being marketed on TV. We have seen this now multiple times this season. It happened last week with Adonai Mitchell of the Colts. I, this is the dumbest thing you could possibly do as a football player. And I coach 12-year-olds. If they did this, they'd be on the bench. They might not get a carry the rest of the game. I do not understand how, in your mind, when you are running across the goal line, you drop the ball before the goal. Like, it is the most basic. I get sometimes some of the boneheaded penalties that these guys make in the heat of the moment when they are, especially defensively, right? Because as a defender, it's just I'm trying to kill someone. Like I am heat-seeking missile. And sometimes you get a little too over-aggressive, right? The holding penalties, the personal fouls, you get a little too heated and you make a stupid mistake. It's stupid, but at least you can kind of justify I lost my head for a minute. When you are running with the football, your singular focus should be getting not only into the end zone, through the end zone. That's how I would coach it. You are running through the end zone. Run through the back of the pylon into the stands and then jump in the crowd, drop the ball, run to the sidelines, do whatever you want to do. But we are continuously seeing, and I don't know if it's a coaching thing, I don't know if these guys are just getting dumber, but we are continuously seeing players drop the ball before they get into where they need to be, which is the end zone. Truly remarkable. I just don't understand it. So Cardinals again, they win yards per play over the Titans. And the funny thing is, Arizona up 9 late in the game, Cam Ward on third down with like 4 minutes left throws a pick, and then the crazy, like the DeMercado play was crazy enough, and then the crazy interception fumble into the end zone. I think it was Tyler Lockett who recovered it in the end zone for a touchdown. That is one of the and then of course the Cardinals go 3-and-out on the next drive, and you know what happens next. Tennessee kicks the field goal to win the game. Insane. If you were in Survivor and you lost on the Cardinals, I have no words. This is why I don't. This is why I don't do big money Survivor Bowls anymore. I tweeted that last night. Survivor's fun. It's a lotto ticket, $20, $50, maybe 100 max. For a Survivor pool for the season is what I would maybe consider. But there are people out there that drop 10 grand and do 10 entries in Circus Survivor. I just don't get it. It is a very expensive lottery ticket. There are so many better contests out there where you are locked in for the whole season. You can win quarterly prizes. Again, for a professional gambler, you do what you do with your money. For someone who's like an average Joe like me, who just doesn't have a giant budget, dropping 1,000 even for one circuit entry in Survivor is crazy to me. I don't understand people who do it as like a job. Um, it is a lottery ticket. There is no skill involved in Circa. I'm sorry, in Survivor. It's not. It's a complete lot. It's a complete lottery ticket because of the one and done nature of it. It's a fun lottery ticket. I'm not taking anything away from the gamble aspect of it. But if you're strapped for cash and you're trying to figure out where do I want to allocate my contest money in August, I think there's better options for the average Joe out there than Circus Survivor. Teams that won turnover margin but lost the game: Dolphins and Browns. Again, I didn't think the Dolphins played that well yesterday. I think if I go to their yards per play. So again, see here, I do all the yards per play. I do all the success rates, turnovers, penalty sacks, red zones, third downs. Let's go to Miami here and highlight it. Um, yeah, Miami got their butts kicked in yards per play, lost success rate. Again, Carolina turned it over twice because Bryce Young, I think it was in the first quarter, both turnovers on like the first like 5 plays of the game, lost his head. But then Miami just kind of folded down the stretch. They're just not a team that I would take very seriously right now. Browns +2 over the Vikings. That was a weird game in London. I lost the Dylan Gabriel yards under prop on that last pass, that meaningless last pass where they had the Hail Mary, they missed the Hail Mary, they called timeout, and then they ran it again, and they ran a random pass that just didn't even get close to the end zone. So tough beat on anyone who had the Dylan Gabriel under in passing yards. But Browns did win the turnover margin but lost the game. So there's your fluke report. Again, the teams that I wouldn't upgrade who won: Niners and Bucks. I just think those games were super fluky. I would not upgrade either team, and vice versa. Teams that lost that I wouldn't downgrade: Rams and Seahawks. So that was kind of your day in the NFL. Not a great day for favorites. Weird day with the Titans winning. I mean, they're now 4-18 straight up under Brian Callahan. Good for them. I'm definitely fading them next week. I don't even care who they play. You've got to fade Tennessee next week after that win. And just a wild, wild evening, too. Good for Drake May. Good for Drake May. Good for the Patriots. I thought that was a different result than I expected. I thought there were going to be more points in that game. The first half was super sleepy, and then things kind of woke up in the second half. But really good performance there by Drake May, who outplayed Josh Allen, who was the MVP favorite coming into the game. All right, college football playoff predictions. So now we'll move over to college, right? I'll have some segments for you a little bit later in the show. We'll preview them in a minute, but I do want to talk about my college football playoff predictions. I do this every week. And I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone by doing this. I'm not trying to act like I'm this genius by doing college football playoff predictions every week. This is for me to track how teams are trending. And I think this is something that is very useful for anyone to do because what it does is it kind of puts guardrails on teams and how they're going to perform throughout the season. So I just update, and I actually forgot to do it last week. See, I had week 4, week 3, week 2, week 1, and then my initial college football playoff predictions from back in August. I forgot to post them last week, which I apologize. I did write them down on my sheet. I just didn't post them last week. I just forgot. So here's my college football playoff predictions after week 6. I have Ohio State as my number 1 team. I think the defense is legit. I think they are a team that is probably going to coast through the regular season. The Penn State game now, which was going to be perhaps their toughest test, is now looking like a walkover. We'll see how they fare against Michigan. That's obviously been a bugaboo for them in prior years, but they look like the best team in college football. Right, they definitely look the best defense in college football right now. I don't know how good Julian Sayin is, but that defense is legit, and they've got all the weapons in the world. And Ryan Day is kind of figuring it out. So it's impressive right now. I've got Miami too. They've accomplished or they've overcome all the obstacles early in the season. The rest of their schedule is super soft. They're going to coast to the ACC championship game and probably a top 3 seed in the CFP. I've got Bama as my SEC champion. I've got him as the number 3 seed. I think the seeding could change if Bama keeps winning because I think Bama finishes in front of Miami. Um, if Bama goes 11-1 and Miami goes 12-0, I think Bama actually has a higher seed because of the SEC over the ACC. The ACC is really bad this year. Um, the other conference champion I have is the 11 seed Texas Tech. They look like the best team in that conference, albeit that conference is wide freaking open. Anyone can win that conference this year. But right now, Texas Tech looks like the best team heading into Week 7. Um, Oregon, Georgia, A&M, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Indiana, Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's schedule is cake, and they've got some nice wins on their resume. I think Georgia Tech is going to be. I think the ACC will get 2 this year, just like last year. Um, and I think Georgia Tech probably going to go 11-1, and probably going to play Miami in the ACC championship game. Probably going to lose, but I do think 11-1 with a loss to Miami in the ACC title game. I think that gets them in. I've got UNLV as my group of 5. This UNLV team hasn't impressed me, but they keep winning games. And in the group of 5, if you win games, you're going to make the college football playoff. Now, does that mean they're going to win a game in the college football playoff? No, they're going to be a double-digit dog to, I don't know, what is it? It'll be the 5-12 to Georgia, and and they'll get their ass kicked in that game. But they'll make the field. Good for Dan Mullen. This program has it has a moxie to them. Again, I'm in Vegas, so I have I have a unique connection to them. I'm able to interact with some of their staff members on a regular basis, and they know that they're not the most talented team in college football or even in the group of 5, maybe even in the Mountain West, but they have an edge to them. And Calandria is a tough kid, the quarterback. He's gritty, and their defense is playing well enough to get them across the finish line in these games. And until they lose, they're the only undefeated team I think in the group of 5 that's legit. Memphis, I think actually, excuse me, Memphis. I think Memphis has a shot as well, but right now I'll put UNLV in that spot. Again, subject to change, obviously, as these games go on. Right now, UNLV stringing together wins. So I had them from week. So if you go scroll all the way back up, they were my original group of 5 prediction back in August. So maybe I'm a little stubborn sticking with the Rebels, but they haven't lost. So who am I to argue? I did a little update, a little text update. Right. I think last year it was unique. The SEC only got 2 at-large teams last year, Texas and Tennessee. Big Ten got 3: Penn State, Indiana, Ohio State. I'll get to Penn State in a minute. But this year kind of feels like we're going to reverse that, right? I think the SEC might get 4. Right now, I've got 4 in my field: Georgia, A&M, Ole Miss, Tennessee. In terms of at-large berths, right? I think that's kind of how the power dynamic shakes out. How many at-large berths are you getting in a 12-team field with 4 automatic qualifiers and a group of 5 automatic? Which means there's only 7 at-large berths, right? Last year, Notre Dame got 1. You had the Big Ten get 3. SEC only got 2. ACC 1. ACC, I think, still going to get the 1. I think the Big Ten maybe gets 2. Maybe gets 2. Right now, I have 2 Big Ten teams in the field outside of the champion, Oregon and Indiana. We'll see what happens in that game this week. Huge game in Eugene this week between Indiana and Oregon. You got to downgrade Oregon, too. Like, I had Oregon as my Big Ten champion, but you've got to downgrade Oregon based on the Penn State loss. I don't make the rules. That's the way it works. Penn State looks like crap. Oregon barely got by. I think you got to downgrade Oregon based on how bad Penn State looks, because when Oregon goes into Happy Valley and barely wins in double overtime, and then Penn State goes on the road and loses to UCLA as a 25-point favorite with their stupid offensive coordinator not even calling plays half the time because he doesn't remember he's the offensive coordinator because he just got hired midweek, I think you've got to downgrade Oregon. And I think Ohio State's got the edge over Oregon right now, at least defensively. But we'll see. Again, these are very fluid. The reason I do this every week is I just want to see the highs and the lows, where my opinions change on teams throughout the year. I'm not doing this to try to act like I'm some genius that predicted the college football playoff. It's just for me to help understand the ebbs and flows of a college football season. So those are my CFP predictions after week 6. All right, let's get to the Heisman race because I haven't given any betting advice on the show yet. I will give a little bit of betting advice. Um, I think the Heisman race is an opportunity for that. I think I'm surprised waking up today seeing Carson Beck as the favorite. I am. And if you go to BetMGM right now, again, I'm a BetMGM guy. They host my Fox Sports Radio morning show. Shout out the morning or shout out Countdown to Kickoff. This is the morning after. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, by the way, if you are watching. There's no one watching, but that's okay. Maybe one day someone will. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I work hard. I'm just trying to put my best foot forward. I would appreciate it if you subscribed. Um, I was surprised waking up today seeing Carson Beck as the favorite. I bet so. My portfolio is as followed. I bet Carson Beck 12 plus 1250 after week 1. I bet Arch Manning pre-flop. That's a lemon. And then I bet Ty Simpson at 17-1 during the Georgia game. So I think Dante Moore deserves to be the favorite right now. However, I guess if you take my advice and you downgrade Penn State, or obviously if you downgrade Oregon because of the Penn State game, then maybe you should downgrade Dante Moore in the Heisman. I guess Beck and Moore both deserve to be the favorite. I'm surprised that Beck is 5-1 and Moore 7-1. I think those guys should be equal. I don't see Jeremiah Smith winning this award. I don't see it because Ohio State's defense is too good. So they're not going to win their big games high scoring, I don't think. I think Ohio State's DNA this year is 23-20, not 42-40. And I think that makes Jeremiah Smith winning the Heisman really hard. The Big Ten also might not be very good. Oregon might be above average. Penn State, below average. Indiana might be slightly above average. Ohio State might be the only elite team in the Big Ten this year. So if you only have one elite team and Jeremiah Smith cakewalks through this, or Ohio State cakewalks through this conference and wins the conference championship and doesn't have to score a lot of points doing so, I just don't see how Jeremiah Smith wins the award. I think Ty Simpson deserves to be higher on this list. I might still bet him at 8-1. Now, I know Bama's schedule is tough, no doubt about it. But I think Ty Simpson's playing the quarterback position at the highest level of anyone in college football right now. From the neck up, especially. What he is able to do getting into and out of plays at the line of scrimmage. Now, I know a lot of that's Kalen DeBoer's coaching. But he still has to make the throws, and he has to make the reads. And he's doing both of those things at a very high level right now. I'm not saying Bama deserved to cover against Vandy. I think that game was kind of nip and tuck. The Bama defense played fantastic in the second half. But what Ty Simpson is doing right now in the toughest conference in America, playing the toughest position in football, deserves a lot more credit. Carson Beck and Dante Moore, because they are both undefeated, those quarterbacks deserve to be the favorite. But there's a pretty big gap right now, right? 5-1 and 8-1. I kind of think it should be 5-1, 6-1, 5-1, 7-1. So I still think there's a little bit of upside with Ty Simpson. I've already got a ticket in my back pocket, so I'm not betting it now. But to me, Ty Simpson is the guy here. This is the guy that I would be voting for. If the Heisman, if you asked me who's the best player in college football today, in the toughest conference, at the toughest position, that answers Ty Simpson. Carson Beck plays the toughest position in maybe the easiest of the Power 4 conferences. The ACC is the worst of the Power 4 conferences this year. The team we thought that was the best, barely going to be bowl eligible in Clemson. Obviously, the Big Ten is better, but we have to downgrade Oregon based off of what we saw against Penn State. I think Ty Simpson should be co-favorite right now because one loss in the SEC, and I know it's to Florida State, man, that's going to be – you're probably thinking, Jerry, what are you talking about? The SEC just lost to the ACC a few weeks ago with Bama. Yeah. That game, we're going to look back on that Florida State-Bama game, and that'll be my biggest takeaway from the year. How the F did Florida State beat Bama by 2 scores? Bama might go 11-1 and win the national championship. In fact, I have them winning the Natty right now over Ohio State. We're going to look back on that Florida State game and be like, how the heck did that happen? So, my big takeaways for the Heisman Trophy right now, Ty Simpson is the real freaking deal. He is playing the quarterback position at the highest level of any player in the country right now, between the ears, neck up. He can do all the physical things too. He can make all the throws. He's got good footwork. He's athletic enough to maneuver in the pocket and be elusive. That's not the strength of his game. I'd say that's more of a Dante Moore strength. But man, I am impressed with Ty Simpson right now playing the quarterback position at an elite level. All right. So that is the recap from the weekend. That is kind of the vibe of how I'm going to operate. What I'm going to do is bring the show in, talk about the NFL, the morning after, week, whatever, talk about college football, any lingering college football takes that I have from the weekend. And then I have two segments that we are going to close the show with every week. Those two segments are morning based. Maybe we add some segments later on. Maybe we subtract some segments later on, depending on how these work out. But the first segment I want to debut is called Rise and Wine. Get it? Rise and shine, rise and wine. Oh, I know, Jared. Dad jokes. Um, so this is going to be my venting session from a bad loss, from some crazy thing that happened that I hate that happened over the weekend. Um, Sometimes I'll do multiple things. We'll see how it goes. Again, episode 1 of the morning after. Let's just take it one day at a time. Um, Obviously, I have to vent about my alma mater, Penn State, which had one of the worst losses of the season and maybe of the decade. It definitely is the worst loss of the James Franklin era. And unfortunately, Penn State is stuck with James Franklin. That is my rise and wine of today. He has a $50 million buyout. He's not getting bought out. I think with all the money that Penn State spent on the roster, on the coaching staff, unfortunately, I don't think James Franklin's going anywhere anytime soon. Unless he has a come to Jesus moment and says, this ain't working, I'm leaving, and they can avoid the buyout. I just don't see Penn State having, and maybe I should put myself on camera for this, huh? All right, let's start this again. Rise and Wine, a segment on the show that I'm going to be doing every week where I vent about things that pissed me off in sports. The thing that pissed me off the most over the weekend was my alma mater, Penn State, losing as a 25-point favorite to winless UCLA. This is one of the worst losses, maybe of the millennium in college football. It is definitely the worst loss of the James Franklin era. But I have bad news for Penn State fans, myself included, that want to see this program move on and ascend to a higher level. James Franklin has a $50 million buyout. He is not going anywhere. I do not think the Board of Trustees, with all the money that they have spent on the roster, on the coaching staff, is going to fork over $50 million to push James Franklin out as head coach of Penn State. That doesn't excuse the loss. It is the worst loss in a long time that I can recall since I was a Penn State fan, when I was a member of that school in the early 2000s. Now, we had some bad losses. We lost the game 6-4 to Iowa. That was with Zach Mills at quarterback. I was at that game, by the way. It was my freshman year. They had no expectations that year. So you can afford a bad loss that year. You can lose a game 6-4, and it'll just be a punchline, but it's not going to alter the program in any significant way, up or down. This loss will. And I credit Josh Pate, who said this after the Oregon game. He said Penn State's program is going to go in one or two different directions after this game. They're either going to rebound and they're going to bounce back, or they're going to fall off a cliff. He was right. The cliff has been jumped off of, not fallen off of. Penn State jumped off the cliff. The reason why this game was so damning is, A, obviously they were a big favorite. UCLA has been terrible, one of the worst teams in college football, 0-4, the Nico drama, all of those things. But Jerry Neuheisel, Rick Neuheisel's son, was hired midweek to be the offensive coordinator. He's a very young kid, his first time calling plays. He admitted after the game that he had forgotten multiple times to put the headset microphone down and hit the right button to call the play, which means multiple times during the game, UCLA didn't even call a play, and Penn State still couldn't stop it. They gave up 42 points. The highest paid defensive coordinator in the sport, Jim Knowles, could not stop UCLA's offense with Nico Iamaleava at quarterback and a 31-year-old kid who had never called plays before, who's not even putting the headset on right, getting the play in to his quarterback. I have no words for what took place at the Rose Bowl on Saturday. But the bad news is James Franklin ain't going anywhere. All right, also on my Rise and Wine list today, Bill Belichick, who got absolutely pounded by Clemson over the weekend. That's not even the headline here. We expected that. They were a double-digit dog in that game, and Clemson embarrassed them. The part that is embarrassing even more so is the news that broke on Monday morning. And I want to pull up this tweet from Ross Martin, who is a content editor with 24/7. According to sources inside the UNC football program, it is a directive from the staff, Bill Belichick, to not tweet, retweet anything Patriots related, which is clearly why UNC football has not posted anything from Drake May's electric primetime win over the Buffalo Bills. So you're probably wondering, what does this mean? And my takeaway from it is Bill Belichick continues to show why he is not fit to be coaching college sports right now. College sports is all about two things: student athletes and recruiting. If you can't do those two things, have relationships with the student athletes and recruit young kids and push the program forward, you are not fit to coach college football. Bill Belichick is obviously in this for him. It's not about the kids. It's about Bill. UNC should be screaming from the rooftops how great Drake May looked last night. That should be the number one talking point for UNC football today. They should be sending it out to all their donors, all their boosters. Look at what a quarterback from our program can do. All their recruits should be seeing it, especially the quarterback recruits. Look what you can do if you come to UNC. Look what we can propel you to. But the feud, the pettiness between Bill and the Patriots has clouded his judgment on how to run the program. I'm sorry. There's no excuse for it. This level of pettiness maybe would be acceptable if they were winning games. They're not. They're a bad team. He's not identifying talent at a high level anymore. At some point, UNC has to decide what's best for the program or what's best for Bill. Because I don't think those two things are aligned right now, which is very rare in a college football landscape. Usually in college sports, I know college sports is changing, NIL, all this stuff. It's like professional sports now. But typically, there's still a level of purity with college football. It's for the kids. It's for the school. It's for the program. In this situation, it is all about Bill. And he's not even a good coach. Not right now. Maybe 10 years ago he was. But right now, go look at the results. He's not a good football coach. So that's Rise and Wine, where I vent about things that bothered me in sports over the weekend. In this case, both college football topics. I think you can also throw the Cardinals' epic choke job in there, especially considering they ruined my undefeated week in Circa. But let's stick to the college sports ranks this week. All right, we close on the show with something I'd like to call Morning Glory. I know, I'm really corny with the names. What this is the best performance of the week, right? We want to leave on a high note. Not only the best performance of the week, but also something that you can maybe bet on going forward. Something that you can maybe look at and say, I want to strap my cash to that. I want to put my name on that going forward. This week's Morning Glory, the first Morning Glory in this new era of the morning after. Baker Mayfield. Kudos, Baker. Absolutely kudos. Um, First quarterback ever in the history of the NFL to have 375 passing yards and fewer than 5 incompletions in a regular season game. Incredible comeback win over the Seahawks on the road without some of your best weapons. Mike Evans out, Bucky Irving injured in the game. Emeka Egbuka was phenomenal. Hopefully, you watched our film study from a few weeks ago when we told you to bet him on Offensive Rookie of the Year at 9-1. That number has been cut down significantly. But Baker Mayfield is making a case to be the MVP of the NFL this year, especially after Josh Allen and the Bills lost last night. So the MVP is a pretty simple formula. You win games and you play quarterback. You do those two things, you got a shot to win MVP. The stats are right there. I just told you he's the first quarterback ever to have 375 plus and fewer than 5 incompletions in a regular season game. The stats are there. The Bucs are winning games. But the narrative now is really what people are going to start latching on to. They're a really banged up team. They lost a lot of receivers and running backs and offensive linemen. Their head coach is a defensive minded guy. So he's not getting the head coaching boost that like a Sam Darnold got last year with Kevin O'Connell. And I think Baker Mayfield has a legit chance to win MVP. I bet him last night at 14-1. I would recommend you all do the same. 2 huge games the next 2 weeks. Niners and Lions. Even if Tampa only goes 1-1 in those games, I still think Baker has a shot to win MVP. Based on how the parity has looked in the NFL this year, 13 or 14 wins might be the number 1 seed in the NFC. If Baker Mayfield and the Bucs are the number 1 seed in the NFC this year, I think he's going to win the MVP. He deserves it. He's been through a lot. It's been a up and down road for Baker, but I have to applaud how tough he's been mentally. I mean, he was in Carolina and Cleveland, 2 places where quarterbacks go to die. Then he had that little short stint with the Rams. I think the McVay boost kind of got his career back on track. And since he's come to Tampa, he's won the division 3 straight years, about to make it 4, replacing Tom Brady of all people. I just can't say enough nice things about the Baker resurgence and how, from everything I've heard and read, he's become kind of a father figure to this young Bucs team. People look up to him now. He's not a young idiot kid anymore, number 1 pick in Cleveland, making all these crazy claims and in all these weird commercials. And it seems like it's all about football right now. And I honestly think he has a legit chance to be the MVP of the National Football League. So bet it. Baker Mayfield to win MVP. Morning glory in the debut episode of The Morning After. All right, that's going to wrap things up for us on the show. Again, I am going to go live. I'm going to try to every Monday after an NFL Sunday. We might add more shows later on. We might have some fun new additions to the show as we move forward. But I just want to keep it simple for now because it's not easy to run everything and also do a live show while you're running the board and the graphics and all that stuff. It's hard. So please subscribe. Please like the content. Please support the content. I don't ask you guys for much. I give out most of my stuff for free. Please do your part in supporting my work by just clicking buttons like, subscribe, retweet, etc., etc. I'll post some clips from the show, and we will continue to push forward as we always do. And very excited to be back with you as we revamp, revitalize, and recharge the morning after. That's it for episode 1. I'll catch you next week.